Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, Jacquelyn. How are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back on the podcast after a 2-week hiatus, kind of, for myself at least, not for the podcast. How was your weekend?
It was great. It was great. I also spent 3 of the past 3 weeks in Vermont, working, alas.
Yes.
But it wasn't even a working vacation. It was just really
Just work.
being in Vermont and doing some biking here and there
Yeah.
between stories. So
Yes.
and hanging out. And the mushroom season has begun, so I had to come back.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool, Paul.
Yeah. Oh,
You do
yeah.
some-
I went out and picked a bunch of mushrooms. I pick mushrooms. What you do, you know?
You're like a serious
It's
forager, like a knowledgeable forager, right?
Yeah, it's a Russian thing. But knowledgeable means I haven't killed anybody yet.
Yeah. Or yourself, right? Like, or the other thing, right? The other thing that will not be named.
Or, put somebody
You've
in.
not gotten the wrong mushroom or like gotten the mushroom
No.
you didn't expect. Yeah.
No, that would not happen. But you know,
It could, right? Am I overblowing the fears of foraging?
yeah, it depends on how many chances you take, and I take none.
Got it.
So it's
That makes
just you can't be adventurous.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but it's
as a
risky.
mushroom person.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're off track.
Yes, as always. I will take us through last week's headlines. We had a cover story that I had been waiting for. I was looking forward to, let me say, for a while, a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. When Claire came to me to say like, hey, like I have this story sort of in the works, I was like, oh my God. I didn't even really need to hear more because I was just so like convinced it was going to be incredible. And last week it was, as always. So the story is that early onset colorectal cancer is behaving like a new biologically distinct disease is the headline. But the way that Claire brought it to me was that there's this phenomenon that pregnancy symptoms have a pretty big overlap with young early onset colorectal cancer symptoms. And so that these symptoms are getting overlooked in young pregnant women, and that the subpopulation is getting is missing earlier diagnosis, and that's horrible. And Claire spoke with a patient and got a really narrative experience or narrative story out of it, and it's just incredibly moving, and we can dive into that more as well. But just really fun to be able to talk about it and to finally have, like, even just as a sidebar, we have this incredible art that Cyrus did, an artist, and it's just it's one of these like big feature stories that I think we both Paul and I get, well, everybody in the team, but gets really excited about, and it's like really what we love to do. It's a joy is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So, and then the rest of the issue was really strong as well. Paul, I'm excited to talk about the story behind the story with this as well, Paul, but you wrote a obituary for Maura Gillison, who identified the role of the HPV, like the virus HPV, in head and neck cancer, which totally changed the standard of care. And I, of course, I'm going to steal a factoid that you mentioned earlier, Paul, but it's like 70% of head and neck cancers are caused by HPV. So it's the magnitude of effect is really huge here. The numbers are huge. And then we had two guest editorials, one from what was formerly Exact Sciences, is now Abbott, and the other from Guardant, two companies that are involved in early detection of colorectal cancer through blood testing. And so they both wrote a sort of their own perspective about this new ACS guideline that supports sort of this greater use for these non-invasive testing for colorectal cancer instead of colonoscopy or these more invasive methods that are amazing and effective, but for increased access and things like that. So definitely read those two. I would say if you're going to read one, read the other. They're complementary. Yeah. So really, really fun, like concise issue. There were also some important cancer policies, but I would love to, I don't know, do you want to start with Maura Gillison, Paul, or do you want to start with...
Let's start with colorectal cancer story, because the cover story was really quite something. To me, the really jarring thing was to hear colorectal cancer oncologists say that their waiting room looks very different now than the way it did a few years back. Couple decades ago, or there was hardly anybody who was under 50 Now about half are.
Yeah.
So is it a different disease, and what causes it? And, I don't think there's an answer.
Not yet. Yeah. And I also think, just to piggyback off that, it's not just like incidence rising, right? And I could be misremembering the details, but there are signals. And again, this is sort of this new phenomenon that I feel like researchers and clinicians are trying to sort of parse out, right? There's a lot of unknowns, but the colorectal cancer that appears in these early onset patients seems, again, this is all just like hedging as hard as I can. But it seems like it's biologically distinct, right? So it's in a different part of the colon. I forget exactly the details now. I'm sorry, but it has like, differences on a biological level, not just, we're seeing the same cancer in a different population. And I feel like that's sort of what, it was really interesting, because when I said Claire came to me originally with the story, I was so excited, and it seemed like this really like straightforward, although tragic, feature of like, this is a missed population. But I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, she came and she was like, hey, I'm doing these interviews, and it seems like, the researchers are trying to say like, there's actually a little bit more here, that there really is like an unanswered question of this needs to be treated differently beyond just a population level. And that was, I think, really interesting. And I don't know if I'm rambling too hard, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's an astonishing story, and it just read incredibly with just this ease.
As always with Claire, she's gifted, truly.
Yeah. She's kind of pushing us into stories that I've always kind of had hesitated to do, which is, that kind of a classic feature structure where you start with an anecdote and the person, and you follow that anecdote and the person across. And we have done them incredibly rarely. We do them a little bit more now. I don't know. My concern with that kind of a story has always been that I'm not a physician, and we don't have a physician on the staff. So when you're writing a story about a patient, it's a whole lot safer to not. And
yeah.
even with the Cancer History Project, right?
Yeah, you always ask Debbie Dorshaw.
It's always better to have a physician do an in-depth interview than a non-physician.
Yeah,
it's a historian who's more trained to do it.
Yeah, exactly, with training.
For me, I know what I don't know, or try to know what I don't know. And this is where I don't know, but I feel very, very comfortable with this story, that said. And it's also interesting that there's this incredible way of readership on this story. I mean, people are grabbing it off our website, and that's important. And it's a great story. Well, we've done those, but it's just we've seemed to be doing them a little bit more than we used to.
Well, I think you make a good point. I feel like Claire kind of had that style. She came to the Cancer Letter with that style, and she's shown that she just kind of has her own zhuzh, is that the right word? Like, she can bring that and then also have it. And, I mean, not to, give too much of like the editing process or behind the scenes or whatever, but I feel like, we did bring in, like, there were a lot of, we did a full, or not we, Claire, and then you as editor did a full reporting story, like a normal, like TCL reported story. And then it was almost like it was in the service of this patient's story, rather than, like, I feel like with Debbie Dorshaw, it's like, we are trying to, like, understand this patient's story through the patient's story almost alone. It's like that's sort of the training required. And I think that Claire brings us into sort of this, like, a little bit newer, like a little bit not scary, but like a little bit more vulnerable place. But she pulls it off, and I think it's really to our benefit. And it's
absolutely. I was by no means. I just
she's bringing something new. Yeah.
One of the reasons we have this podcast is we can kind of pull back the curtain about what happens here and how we make decisions. And this is sort of one of our internal questions that we always ask. Is it necessary to start the story with a patient?
Yeah.
And also, it's a time of patient advocacy, which has been going on really through most of my career. But patient stories really need to get out and be told. And I think that is a bit of a change now, because I really, to maybe even push it off even further off subject, at this time when science is in jeopardy, hearing from patients is very, very important. So that's kind of like where we are in this. And by the way, if you look at our stories that are perpetual kind of bestsellers, most of them are that kind of a story. They've been exceptional for us to do them, rare, very rare. But now they're becoming a little more frequent.
Well, would you like to talk about your story? I feel like we have a lot of behind the scenes to share on that too. And
yeah, no, sometimes you get an obituary that, first of all, the great thing about a great obituary is that it's a great story, always, right? Yeah. The worst thing about a great obituary is the news peg. Yeah. It kind of reading it, I have met Maura Gillison, I've spoken with her, but I didn't really know her. I sort of wish I did, because she's just seems to be a truly fascinating physician, scientist. And she also seems like someone who really would be could be the subject of a 20,000 word piece. We probably should return to her contribution through the Cancer History Project, which is kind of our vehicle for saying we screwed up and didn't really do a long enough. Well, I only had a few days.
I feel like you did an awesome job, Paul, for what it's worth.
Well, thank you, but I wish it were 15,000 word piece instead of a 2,000 word piece. Because there's so much. So anyway, here's this young researcher who early in her training asks a question. Is it really so that a lot of head and neck cancer is caused primarily, if not exclusively, by alcohol and tobacco? And the answer she discovers very quickly is HPV. And that rolls out this spectacular career and questions that are still not answered. Mm-hmm. Some of it on the molecular level, some of it on epidemiological clinical trials type of level. And seeing what she was able to do from the basic science piece to the epidemiology piece is like, what an amazing contribution for someone who was really pretty young. I mean, she's 61. That's kind of obscene. It should be illegal for people to die at 61.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know what we'll do about it, but
I don't know who will arrest, but I agree.
And whom, right?
Well, thank you. Yes, no, it's horrible. And I guess when you said she was pretty young, you said she was a young trainee when she asked this question?
Is that happens? Yes. She just was in a lab working at Chi Dang's, I guess, lab. It's in the story, but she was just figuring out what this is, and the interesting thing is that she was not shunted aside as this is a kind of a tribute to this community. Yeah. She was not shunted aside as a young, experienced naysayer, but instead had a spectacular career, which included the Karnofsky Award and the Seabird Scholar and M.D. Anderson and Ohio State, and I'm out of order here on how it all went. Hopkins, but I'm actually in reverse chronological. No, I'm actually, it's a mishmash what I've just done. So I feel terrible. But it's, it's kind of interesting, that breadth of questions that she's asking, and she's pivoting, and it feels like as an intellectual journey in terms of telling it. I hinted at it in the obituary, but I didn't really tell it because you really need about 15, 20,000 words to tell that story, maybe even an entire book. Yeah. Because, it's like kind of a classic medical orthodoxy is, it's caused any idiot knows that it's caused by alcohol and tobacco. Well, Bring in somebody,
And it's not just, not all of them are caused, but it's 70% is caused by HPV. I don't know, not to, I know you were I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to circle back to what you mentioned, this idea that, she was doing sort of maybe not basic science, but she was doing lab work. And then just to see the magnitude of impact on an epidemiological level, I feel like you're saying, it's just such a good reminder for people. When, basic science or lab work is it doesn't, the value in and of itself, I feel like is a little bit under question, or, it's kind of why are we studying the eyes of turtles or whatever? That's very much I feel like a push or a piece of the conversation. And I just wanted to reiterate, I think what you said, Paul, is that I feel like this is a really good reminder to anybody that, we don't know for sure when we're doing lab work, scientists don't know for sure what's going to impact, huge swaths of human beings and their health, right? We can't predict that, but it can. There are many examples, and this is one of them, where 70% of all head and neck cancer patients, and I'm not up on the science, but it's these people can get a vaccine, it's not they get a treatment, and, it's a huge impact. And so I guess I just wanted to reiterate that.
No, it's just so spectacular. She finds the thread, and she just keeps pulling the thread and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it. And she could have kept pulling it for a very, very long time, if not for cancer. So, totally amazing person, totally missed opportunity for me not to have met her or talked to her often. I clearly have spoken with her based on a story that I find in the cancer letter, but she wasn't somebody whom I often call and say, hey, what the heck's going on? How's life? So it's very, it's just, what is a celebration. It's interesting also that stories like that end up on the top of the trending stories.
It is the top, right?
Oh, yeah. And it will be for a very long time. And we're going to have to return to this and through the history project. Yeah. By the way, the other story, I think story 2 right now trending is Joe Fraumeni. Which is another situation where the only thing wrong with a good obit is the news bag. What a career, Ned Sharpless said that there's a guy who belongs on Mount Rushmore of oncology, and he does. So it's very interesting, and the piece was just beautifully written by Steve Chanik. And we are to give you a little bit of a foreshadowing. We're going to do an oral history about him. It will be done by Otis Brawley and Steve Chanik, and that will be in the Cancer History Project. But we really have to return to Maura Gillison. I mean, probably 4 or 5 episodes is what I'm envisioning.
Like a series
of CHP, Cancer History Project. So, but anyway, that's pretty eventful week, wouldn't you say?
And a shortened week. It was very, yes, but we got it done. I'm very excited for the Maura Gillison. I'm just a little bit stuck on what you said, Paul, about the, like you told, I guess you said you didn't tell it, but like to me, when I was reading that story, it's like you told the story, but I agree. Like I'm eager to hear more about like the behind the scenes, and so I'm excited for that. I guess I'm just daydreaming.
Yeah, I mean, I told what I knew, and that's just hints, and that part's not going to change.
No. I mean, it's accurate, and yeah.
It's just that it's the kind of the bones of the story. It's not the whole story.
Yeah, I want more meat. Exactly.
And so many questions to ask right now. And actually, her friends are trying to put together money to finish her work at MD Anderson.
Wow.
Which is taking things to a whole different level, and that's in the story as well.
Yes.
And there will be a remembrance event for her, and it should be very interesting to see what happens, how her work would be completed. But this is somebody who probably had another 20 years of a pretty spectacular career and should have, but. Yeah, we were all cheated out of it.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you, Paul. This was awesome story. And just to give you some kudos, like it had to be done. I'm so glad you did it. You're glad you did it, but you got it done in like 3 days or something. And it's a really just wanted to give you some kudos. So,
thank you. That was that was quite a week. A short
important
week. Yeah. It was. I'm so glad we were able to do it.
Well, thank you for being with me on the podcast, Paul. I will see you next week, probably. Listeners, I will see you next week for sure.
Right. And this is a great time to be a journalist.
It is. Bye.